Streets and Scholars, Alex Alonso and FG, here to bring you guys another banger. And there goes the East Side General's in the house, man. How you feeling, man?
Man, I'm feeling pretty good today, man. Feeling pretty good. How about you?
Everything's good. Everything's good. You know, just tired like everybody else,
Yeah, no doubt, man.
and dealing with my back problems. Doctor tried to tell me he wants me to do physical therapy before surgery, so I might have to try that.
How long he want you to do that, man? They always trying to put some shit off, man. Just shit, handle the business. Damn.
8 weeks of physical therapy that I don't think is going to fix my back. They don't tell them athletes,
Right, right.
when a professional athlete gets a herniated disc, they go in there and fix it, don't they?
Man, they go right in there and take care of it, man. You know what I mean? But you know the healthcare system, in America is they gonna put you on the back burner every time.
I'm not sure if they're just trying to have the physical therapist, break them off some money for a little bit before they end up saying, okay, it looks like you're gonna need surgery, or is that just something that they trying to look out for the patient?
No, that's just exactly how it works. They refer you to their partners. Sometimes, even when we go get them DOT physicals nowadays, first thing they want to do is measure your neck and start talking about sleep apnea. Bro, how's my heart? How is my breathing? How's my blood pressure? You know what I mean? But you're trying to refer me to your partner so you can keep a pipeline of money going. I had a shoulder problem not too long ago. They did the same thing, man. We're going to do physical therapy. I got on the floor, did 50 push-ups, handstand push-ups. I told them I can bench 300 pounds. But listen, um, physical therapy ain't gonna fix it. You know what I mean? So they finally end up giving me a ultrasound. And what happens is my rotator cuff was just rubbing up against my bone it wasn't tore or nothing like that. It just was rubbed for some reason, like inflammation or something rubbing up in it. But it was bothering me for a long time, bro. When I sleep, when I try to work out. But it took them a minute for them to even get to just simply doing a ultrasound, which dude did in 5 minutes, But they sent me through the rigmarole, just and they could have just went straight to the ultrasound and took care of it,
So how much time was that? Days or weeks of time wasted?
Yeah, it was, but well, see, that's the thing about us men, we working, we doing shit, we got shit to do. So when I went to the doctor finally for it, I didn't go back to the doctor again about a year. I let it bother me like a year, and I went back and say, check this out, man, something wrong, man. It ain't a pinched nerve. It ain't something over time. Something is wrong, man. And I had to like put it down on him, like, bro, this ain't no physical therapy type shit, and that's when dude finally said, only thing I hate about, I mean, I ain't gonna use the word hate, but I never tell you about this was just a few months ago. So, bro, I go in there, and he looked at my x-rays from the previous time I went to the doctor. So when they took the shoulder x-ray, I remember the young girl who took the shoulder x-ray, I got bullet in my lung, you know what I mean? But I didn't mention it, you know what I mean? I heard it like, oh my God, you know what I mean? And so when he picked up my x-rays to check them out, he said, oh, is it bullet fragment? I'm like, yeah, no doubt. He said, can you take your shirt off so I can... Bro, this dude read every tattoo. I mean, he just judged me up and down. It's like his whole demeanor changed and shit. You know what I mean? He's reading my tattoos and shit. And I'm like, bro, as long as my health insurance pay you, don't worry about what's on my body, man. You know what I mean? And he had a little funky ass attitude and shit. After that, but he did what he supposed to do. So, but I just tripped off how he didn't even stereotype me, bro. He just judged me. You know what I mean? But I did get a cortisone shot. I have been doing great. I'm back in the gym. I'm back exercising. So I'm gonna see how long that lasts. But that herniated disc, no, they need to go in there and fix that.
Well, I saw a few videos where physical therapy can fix or help a herniated disc, but it takes a long time of repetitious exercises, and I'm not sure if my herniated disc is even repairable, but apparently some physical therapy can fix a herniated disc. So, now
Physical therapy can help some things, but the amount of exercise that you have to be a damn near gym rat in order to get to the level of muscle and strength and and all that sort of thing. You damn near have to live in the gym, but it is possible in some instances. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so I might have to go through that for a few weeks just to appease them and let the physical therapist make a little money off of me, I guess, or off of my insurance, because I think that's the name of the game, man.
That's the name of the game, bro.
Hey, I have a few comments and questions that I wanted to get through that I got here. Let me see if I can find these real quick. A couple of them was funny. One person last month when we talked about Valentine's Day last
Hmm.
month. I forget the context of which it came up, but one of the persons tapped in with the Streets and Scholars Instagram page and asked us, what do we think about anniversaries, wedding anniversaries to be specific, and do we put any weight on wedding anniversaries? And I think that's a dangerous question to ask two men that are married, huh?
Well, you know what the funny part about is I saw that comment, right? And even my wife, like, man, Alex went pretty hard on that Valentine's Day thing. You know what I mean? And so I remember that comment, and but I laughed about it. I told her, about that comment, that exact comment. Shit, it all depends on how long you've been married. You know what I mean? For you dudes been married 1 to 5 years, yeah, you might put something on anniversaries and stuff like that, man. You know what I mean? And but after us, Alex, over 15 years of over 15 years of marriage, you when the anniversary comes, you likely to say, damn, I'm still married to this motherfucker. You know what I mean? You know it. And
Yeah.
sometimes though, bro, it's like this. I don't knock a man for what he do. My wife, she expect 15 years and 25 years, and I'm supposed to get this new big diamond and this new, you know what I mean. And I'm more or less like, man, be happy, a motherfucker still here, man. Damn, you know what I mean. I'm still, pushing these bills. I'm still doing what I'm supposed to do it as a husband. But every now and then, don't get me wrong, I will say, let's dress up, let's go out to eat, let's do something. If money wasn't a factor, don't get me wrong, of course we would be doing maybe some, just because money wasn't a factor, but because it is, I don't let the no kind of stress or no kind of, obligating to that date, hold no weight on, anything, you know what I mean? So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I don't really put much weight on our anniversary. I believe, let's see if I remember this right. I believe I've been married for 23 years, man. 23 years to the same
Man,
person. To the same
man.
person. The reason why I say to the same
Yeah,
person,
yeah.
I heard a comedian say, I've been married for 30 years to three different women because he had like three marriages.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but my wife will bring it up. She'll be like, "Hey, our anniversary's coming up," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool. What you want to do, you know?" But every once in a while, we might do something. But it's just another day to me. So
I mean, they'll put that pressure on us, though. You know what I
yeah,
mean, to do something, but they'll do that for any day. Groundhog's Day. It's Groundhog's Day. You want to go out to dinner. So, but like I said, I don't knock a dude for acknowledging that he stayed married another successful year, because it's not easy. You know what I mean? Don't have to be hard, but it's not easy. So.
so you saying marriage in general is not easy.
No, not at all. Especially in today's society. I mean, you have to understand that you have to know your mate. A lot of these dudes, just meet these women, don't know the complete history and background on them. And then when they find it, it don't have to be nothing like just bad like that. You know what I mean? But, people who meet their spouse, older, after college, during a career, you know what I mean? I mean, how good do you really know this person? You know what I mean? Um, so that's the thing about it. And then when you find out something later that wasn't disclosed, it wasn't lied about, it might have just not been disclosed.
Yeah,
Sometimes people run into trouble, just because they wasn't truthful about their past. You know what I mean? And that's the whole thing about it. You got to be truthful. You got to be upfront. You got to, just basically, go into it wholeheartedly, as far as if you being genuine, because I think you get 4, 5, 6 years in, man, and some shit can unravel based on some shit that you didn't disclose.
yeah, definitely. I think I did a pretty thorough vetting process on my wife before we got married. I dated her for on and off for like 8 years. So I felt like I
Hmm.
had a good understanding of who she was and what she was all about before before I made that crazy decision. But yeah, I think vetting your girlfriend, for you guys who are single and thinking about getting married, make sure you vet her thoroughly. Make sure you know what her past is about. Her past is definitely going to give you an indication of her future. But that was an interesting question about wedding anniversaries. And just recently, my wife said we should redo our wedding vows. I'm okay to redo it if that's what she wants to do. If she wants to set up the whole thing, sure, let's do another wedding. But that's something that usually comes from the women, right? I don't never hear dudes saying, "Let's go redo our vows."
No doubt. My wife said every so often, well, what she said, she wants a wedding. She's never had a wedding. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I do believe she was deserving of that. But every time we were starting to set it up, she was like, you know what? I'm gonna take this money and we gonna do this to the house, or we gonna do this, but it was on her, but she, unfortunately my wife never got a wedding. You know what I mean? Just for the record books, we talk about Victorville Prison a lot. I was the first person in Victorville too to get married there. You know what I
Damn.
mean? And I set the precedent, for dudes able to even do it. I had to do the paperwork, do a lot of rigmarole with the warden and things of that nature, but I got it done. You know what I mean? But yeah, so my wife never actually had a wedding, bro. My best man was the homie Deuce John from Two Ps, and and a couple of SIS lieutenants or something.
Damn. So that's some Victorville
Was
prison
right there.
history right there.
Yeah, I was the first one. Me and the homie from think the homie was, because we was the only two. I think he was from San Diego 40s, if I ain't mistaken. But yeah, me and him was the first dudes to kick the dough in on being making that happen. But she do deserve a wedding. But like you say, the cost of them and all that, she'd be like, man, no, we can do something else with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, weddings are for women. It's for them. It's for the bride. It really doesn't. I don't know too many men that really care about the wedding. So for me, weddings are for the women, and if you got to do it, you got to do it, man. Give the woman what she wants for the wedding. Shoot, weddings.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt.
Remember that they used to cost the average cost of wedding used to be 10,000, but now I think that's shot up to like 20, 25, man. So
Yeah, that's one of the things about it. You know what I mean? It's not like you say, you can go grab 10 stacks, do a wedding. Now they want so much, extravagant shit, and the prices have rose for everything. Crazy part about it, man, or whether you do it in a church or a hall, you got to even rent that out. Those used to be, when it came to a wedding, those things were donated, you know what I mean, and things of that nature. But like you said, everything costs a pretty penny right now. So, you know, hey man, if you ready to do it, handle your business, man. I'm not against you.
now let me ask you this, because I know a lot of dudes that got married in prison, and once they came home, once they got released, those weddings pretty much fell apart. And I feel like some guys actually will use a woman while he's in prison and give her that marriage, but once he's free, it's like f the marriage. Why did yours work out, and why have y'all stuck it through? Because you've been home now almost a decade, if I do my math
Yeah.
correctly. So, what was the strength in your wedding? Because you got to admit, a lot of dudes that get married in prison, when they come home, they not with it.
No doubt, you know what I mean, and I wouldn't have did it myself based on, but wife was like, look, I'm not finna be a baby mama doing this, you know what I mean, I need some kind of commitment, you know what I mean, and don't get me wrong, it could have went both ways, Alex, her mind could have changed while I was gone, my mind could have changed while I was gone. Thing about it, in prison, it do only cost $1 to get a divorce, so that wouldn't have been you know um a problem, but the thing about it was, no, it was rough when I came home, just based on we were two different people. I left at 31 and came home at 40. You know what I mean? So she had grown in so many different ways. I had grown in so many different ways, um, and it was a struggle, like really to really get to know each other on a day-to-day level, because living with some, don't forget, even when I left, I lived by myself. She had her own house, I had my own house. We got tired of each other. I go home and she'll go home. You know what I mean? So it was our first time even but we had lived together before, shortly, short spurts. But when I came home, bro, it was a little difficult, the bonding, my daughter, I had never seen her outside the prison, and she was born while I was in there, for me to come home, even with she had been the boss all this time, um, even for my kids, when I say something, they'll look at her first, and I had to establish delicately, nah, you don't, when I say do something, because my son, he couldn't even ride past on his bike, like past 2 houses, he had to turn his bike around. When I came home, I'm like, nah, man, you go all the way to around the corner if you want to. You know what I mean? Around the corner, man, he looking at his mom. No, don't look at her. You can go right around the corner if you want to. Go around the bride house. Go around the, and it wasn't a power struggle. It was just more or less like, different rules was implemented. Then I'm coming off the yard, so I'm in general status. You know what I mean? I'm not knowing that I'm as physically intimidating, and you know what I mean, and the look in my eyes and the way that I'm acting is really intimidating the whole family a little bit. I had to soften it up, and but it wasn't easy, Alex. Just to be honest with you, bro.
Well, we got a prison topic that I wanted to talk about a guy that got stabbed up in Pelican Bay. But before we jump into that, I wanted to ask you about we talked about Tekashi 6ix9ine getting beat up in that bathroom last week. And just recently, Lord Jamar from Brand Nubian, the rap group that we all used to listen to in the late 80s, he did a video. I'm not going to play the video, but for those who are interested in it, you can just go to the Yada the Mean podcast and watch his video where he actually is making an argument that the 6ix9ine assault in that bathroom was fake. I want to get your response to that, but these are his main reasons why it was fake. He said he believes that the blood on the face is makeup. Because he was there with no security, that's unusual. And let me also add that Lord Jamar believes that the Will Smith smack was fake also. So, okay. This is his mentality. This is his background. Maybe he's a pro conspiracy theorist. The third thing was that the video starts in the middle of the action. The fourth part is his face is already bleeding and we didn't see any punches to the face. The fifth guy, there's a guy walking with Tekashi at the end. Who is that guy, he's asking. And then the incentive is because this type of prank brings publicity and this is what he likes. And his last point was that he's wearing a big fat jacket. Maybe that was to soften the blows of the fake assault in the bathroom, man. So what's your whole take on that?
You know what? I'm for one, I can't be definite 100% sure that it wasn't. I don't believe it was fake, just to be honest with you. I believe if he wanted publicity, he would have did something in the fact to where he was whooping some ass opposed to getting his ass whooped. I don't know too many people who fake getting their ass whooped for some publicity. That's some hell of a publicity right there. But the camera could have started in the middle just based on when shit kick off. Dude's probably whooping ass, then decided, oh, let's get it on video.
Yeah.
That could have been that situation. It looked like real blood to me. I mean, I think it was real, to be honest with you. I wasn't there, so like I said, I can't put the 100% sure stamp on it. Didn't realize that Lord Jamar was the same dude from the Brand Nubian group back in the day, but I think it was real. What you think?
Yeah, I actually do believe it was real, and I think there's an explanation for all of his issues. First, I don't think the blood was fake. It did look like real blood, trickling down his face. I think this guy has been moving around with no security for a while. If you look at a lot of the content or footage of 6ix9ine, in the beginning when he was first released from prison, he did have a couple of security guards, but as of late, he doesn't rock like that. I don't know if it's because it's costly. And as you said, the video starts in the middle. I mean, lots of video starts in the middle of the action. So that's irrelevant. That point right there is completely irrelevant. And then there was a guy walking away with Tekashi 6ix9ine coming out when they walked off, and maybe that was a guy he was in the gym working out with. That's all I could think of. And I did think that his outfit was a little weird. I think you mentioned something when we talked about it last week, like he was in his underwears or something, or some boxers or some tighties. What?
I mean, you in the gym, that's possible to have on though. You know what I mean? To be honest with you, why the jacket still? I don't know. Maybe he was putting the jacket. I don't know that part, but the big jacket, maybe. Hey man, you. Some of these dudes just weird like that. You never know.
Yeah.
And that, hey, so I didn't even look at that part at all. Dude's attire when he in the gym, dude be in there with, tights on and all kind of stuff. I don't look at them no way. That's just how they chose to dress at the gym. Moving around solo. Oh, people do, celebrities do that all the time. You know what I mean? I mean, one time I was in Hollywood at Beverly Hills actually, and I ran into Shaq, and me and Shaq had the same kind of truck. He had a Tahoe, I had a Tahoe, and and I ran into him, and he had just had the Superman stuff all done to us. So when I jumped out, I had bumped into him plenty of times at the Comedy Store and on Sunset. So Shaq like, man, I like that truck, man. I said, yeah. He said, man, I just did mine. Look, he threw me the keys. I walked across the street, looked in his truck and everything, man. I had it hooked up and everything. So we go back into Jerry's Deli, you know what I mean? And I'm like, who you with? He like, I'm by myself, man, just chilling, finna grab something to eat. Come on.
Yeah.
So I see some cats peeping him out though. You know what I mean? And they kind of own him. You know what I mean? So I go back to the truck. He didn't know. I go back to my truck, get the thing, and go sit back down, and we just had some small talk. But these dudes was on him, and I told him, I said, listen, man, it ain't cool to be out here by yourself, bro. But they was on him, homie. You know what I mean? It probably wasn't nothing for them to take at the moment. He probably had credit cards and, he didn't have no jury or nothing. But just the fact that, like I say, I know 100% sure that a lot of these celebrities move around by themselves at times because don't nobody want security with them all the time. You know what I mean? I know a lot of them ride Harleys so they got the helmet on, so you don't even know it's them, but they right there on Crenshaw and right there doing the same shit everybody else doing. It's easy to be seen in a car, but on a motorcycle, it's so for him to be by himself, my whole point is that's highly, highly possible.
So he didn't have his Main Street homies posted up with him because he was known to have hung out with the Main Streets back in the day when he used to come to L.A. What's his name? Rest in peace from Mainstream. Del Dog. I think Del Dog was one of his homies. And
no, he had he didn't this day, but I knew for sure. But that he had some Main Street partners, that he, did business with or hung out with and all things of that nature. I know a few of them, actually. I ain't gonna name their names, but yeah, they wasn't with him on this account, and maybe he just felt like he wasn't nobody tripping off of him. You know what I mean? He hadn't got as big as he is now, you know what I mean? But he still was a Laker, man, and shit, just that alone, somebody would try you, so.
Yeah. Now, there's this.
Look at that.
Yeah, I wanted you to look at this picture.
Yeah.
I think he actually went to the hospital after this, so that Lord Jamar has to explain a fake hospital visit, and he's also got to be able to explain what looks like real swelling on the skin that is not makeup. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's swelling definitely. And a little cut on the nose from this side, a little scrape on the forehead. I mean, to fake a whole hospital visit, to do this extra just over some publicity, bro, that's a lot just to me, if you ask me,
No, I got to make sure this is the same, if this is the picture that's consistent with what happened the other day. I don't recall if he was assaulted other times, but nevertheless, it looked authentic to me. It did not look like it was staged or it was done for publicity purposes. And like you said, if he's going to do something publicity purpose wise, he's going to want to look good in that, right? Not look bad.
Right. No doubt.
But I was going to say he also believes that the Will Smith slap was fake. And I have to disagree on that one. I mean, now we're like over a year. That was a year ago. That was last Oscars 2022. And I mean, if it was fake, the Academy would not have suspended Will Smith for 10 years. I mean, Chris Rock just dropped a whole Netflix comedy special around the slap being real. And then Chris Rock's brother was upset.
Tony Rock.
Tony Rock's
Yeah.
brother was upset. So you have to be able to explain all of these other characters that they're faking it too. So I don't know how you feel about the Will Smith slap. We did talk about it like on one of our first episodes of Streets and Scholars,
Right.
and I think we believed it was authentic. Here we are a year later. You still believe it was authentic?
No, no doubt. But the thing about it, it was really a lot of people who thought it was fake. I still, like I say, wasn't 100% sure, but at the same time, man, it did looked pretty real to me, then just with the, the backlash on how everything went, you know what I mean? Plus, Chris say it was, to this day though, they still got a lightweight issue. He just did a stand-up comedy about it, I'm sure some lawsuits was filed and settled under the table, you know what I mean? I'm sure some money was slid, but like you say, you are going to have a lot of people who just say that, a lot of things aren't fake because so many things are,
Yeah, well,
But I believe both of those. I will say that the Chris Rock and the Tekashi latest incident, but don't forget Tekashi got fired on in the club, a while back. You know what I mean? And he tried to fight back a little bit, but he got fired on at the nightclub somewhere. He been having some lightweight little issues, but like I say, man, sometimes this shit catch up with you.
yeah, and we cannot dismiss the fact that he became a federal cooperator, and there are some people out there that are going to feel a certain kind of way about him when they see him in public. So I'm gonna have to disagree with Lord Jamar. I think he's a kind of he leans towards the conspiracy theorist. I think he leans
Oh,
towards.
okay. Yeah, I haven't checked him out. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's that's my man. I always checking out Lord Jamar. Even though I disagree with him on this one, I think he's got a great platform. Go check him out
Oh, okay.
on his YouTube platform. His thing is growing pretty well. So okay, so we both are disagreeing with Lord Jamar on that one. But since we were on the prison topic, man, I might as well just jump into this, man. This man that was serving a 250-year sentence got stabbed up in prison and lost his life in Pelican Bay. The prison that that Denzel Washington made famous in the movie Training Day. Remember that scene?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, great scene, man. Great movie, period.
Oh
man.
yeah. So I don't know if you tapped in with that story, but I mean, it's probably for a guy like you who's already spent time in prison, it's like it's another day at the office, right?
Well, that state prison a lot more physical. You know what I mean? You got a lot of dudes in there, man. You got, all the gang members. It's just certain some of these state prisons, man. They just rocks and roll, man. And these dudes don't care, man. If what's cracking, they gonna handle they scandal. Different set of politics. And I'm just wondering what he did in this incident. He like 53 years old or something like that, man. And to still be getting stabbed up in prison. What did you do faulty? That's the one thing I don't think they talking about is what he did in prison. They did say that, what I mean, that he was attacked on the prison yard, but they got him good. They found a shank, of course, the knife that was used, and they must have hit him good, because 2 hours later he was dead, so.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's two possible reasons. It could have been one of his victims. Someone felt a certain kind of way about who he was in there for murder. So it could have been
Right.
one of his victims, or he could have been involved in something that the prison, the population thought was telling. That's the only things I can think of.
I mean, it's a lot of possibilities, but I could tell that he was a no nonsense type of dude. After he committed the murder in 2013, he went and shot another guy that owed him $200. And as soon as he killed that dude, he went over to the shot another dude over $200. And when he was getting sentenced, the judge stated that he showed lack of remorse or showed a little remorse, and he stated in open court, no remorse, not a little, no remorse.
Yeah. Hey, we
So he could have just been one of them dudes who just didn't give a fuck, you know.
yeah, we talked about this whole remorse thing in last week, I believe. There's this expectation from the general public, from law enforcement, from the courts, from the judge, that you should show a little bit of or some level of remorse for the crimes you have been found guilty of. But I tell people, don't show no remorse, because you still have a chance to fight this case on appeal. So it's just a crazy expectation. I thought that was funny. No remorse, no remorse.
Yeah, to make sure they was clear, you know what I mean? No remorse, not little, none. You know, didn't have no problem doing it. You know, so it's a million reasons. He could have got into it with some dudes over. I mean, anything, Alex. It could have been a debt in prison. It could have been, you know, it really could have been 100 things. But at the end of the day, man, this dude got gutted out, man, and he didn't make it, man. You know.
Yeah, his name was Joseph Hill, and he was from Linda Vista, I guess, or he one of the guys he killed was from Linda Vista. But yeah, he was probably on that level 4 yard up in Pelican Bay, because they have a PC yard and then they have a level 4 yard. I doubt he was on the PC yard, but it's possible, right? It's possible you can get stabbed up on the PC yard, though.
I guess it is, no doubt. You know, I'm sure you can get stabbed anywhere, but he probably was up there on that 4 with that kind of time, man. It probably been up there for years, and you know, somebody got tired of his shit, nonetheless.
Yeah. Now I wanted to also ask you about, like, I was listening to these this former Mexican mafia guy talk about stabbings in prison, and he was basically saying that it's not the easiest thing to do, because you have to create the weapon, you got to manufacture it yourself. And in the article of they said that the guys that did it used manufactured weapons. And I wanted to just show this picture of a whole bunch of knives that had been confiscated from the prison, and just get your take on this, because at the same time, we hear about these people getting stabbed in prison, but it's not always easy to pull it off. So here's a picture of, let me see here. Let me put this up here. Yeah, here's a picture of a whole bunch of knives that were taken from confiscated from a prison, and it's just amazing the ingenuity that some people have. Where if you look closely, some of these are nails. They're sharpened. Some of them are actually plastic. They're not even metal.
No doubt. The plastic ones are to make it through the metal detector. So just say even at Victorville, from the yard to when I first got there, from the yard to the housing unit, you went through 3 metal detectors. So of course you was gonna get some form of plexiglass or something like that to make the knives with. If you look up top center, you will see things that you refer to as nails and things of that nature. Those are called pokers. So those are something that just, you know, while you squabbing or while you fighting, somebody poking you and you don't even know you hit. If they not hitting you in the neck or the face, you rarely even know you hit till you get back to the unit, you know what I mean, and find out that you've been hit a couple times. You know, some of these things are I mean, I don't see no real. I mean, you can lose your life with some of these, but I mean, I've seen some bone crushers, though. I've seen some knives, Alex, that, you know, just crush your shit, you know. But a lot of these, like I say, are just, they get the job done, no problem. But you know, if you look how many inches they are, a lot of them are smaller in inches. A lot of them, not all of them, and you can survive off a hit like that in certain areas, you know. So, but anything to do when you got to do it, man. I mean. The big homie from Six Deuce East Coast one time showed me he made a knife out of a soda can. You know what I mean? And I was like, damn, man, you where you learn that at? You know, but it's something that, like you say, you hit somebody in the neck, man, and you hit somebody in the eye, you hit somebody in the right spot, it's damn sure gonna be effective, you know. So these knives are made out of any and everything, but like I say, you have to get them through the metal detector, or you have to leave them in certain places in order to be able to, you know, you can't just move them all around based on with the security and things like that.
Now, when you walk out to the yard at Victorville or other prisons, do you have to go through a metal detector?
You got to go through 3. Yeah, you got to go through one leaving the unit, one in the center of the complex, and then you got another one when you actually going to the yard. I think they took the ones out in the unit and just have the 2. But yeah, no doubt you have to. So that's why you get the fiberglass. You know, you want to get the fiberglass, or you want to get the hard plastics. You know, you want to get the things of that nature, so you can keep it on you at all time. What the fuck good is a knife gonna do if it's in the unit or out on the yard, and you in a situation in the chow hall? You know what I mean? So, you know, and the thing about it's like the streets, man. You want to stay strapped at all time, you know, and that's just what it is. You got to be ready at all times, man.
I guess that's why some people keep their knives out on the yard and like in a hidden place or underneath some gravel or tucked away in some secret spot, so they don't have to keep walking it back and forth through the metal detectors.
Yeah, no doubt. But like I say, you know, like me, you know, I had the plexiglass. You know what I mean? I still got a little scar on my right in my lower stomach, because you know, I come from the streets. We used to having pistols. You know, we went out on the street with knives and shit. So you know, I got my knife tucked and shit, and we go to take a picture, and I squat down to take a picture and shit, and stuck the shit out of myself, man.
Damn.
I'm talking about, I was bleeding like a motherfucker out there. I dare to bled out where, you know what I mean? I still got a little scar right there from that shit, man. But that's what it was. I mean, you know, you was prepared at all time, homie, to get cracking. You know what I mean? At that time in my, you know, career, I wasn't gonna play with nobody, you know. And odds was against us. So, you know, it was just what it was. But that was a rookie mistake, a rookie knife mistake that I made, and didn't realize that maybe I had needed to tuck it a different way or something, but still got that damn scar.
Well, you said get it cracking, and that takes us to this next topic, man. That these Crips up in Tacoma, Washington, back in 1989. I don't know why this old story just hit the news. It's a flashback story on Yahoo, but apparently some Crips got into a 300 round shootout with Army Rangers up in, was that Tacoma, Washington?
Mm-hmm.
Tacoma, Washington, back in 1989. I just thought it was an interesting story because it talked about the gangs in Tacoma, but of course they're related to the LA gangs. Of course, you know, they're gangs that kind of migrated up there. Let me see if I could share this story real quick. I'm not going to play a video. It's just a headline of this story. This headline is crazy. Army Rangers engaged in a 300-round shootout with Crips gang on U.S. soil, and it turned out it's a Crip gang called the Hilltop Crips,
Yeah.
up in Tacoma. And you know, I've been hearing about gangs going up to Portland, Tacoma, Spokane from L.A. during this time that this shootout took place. I've been hearing about that since the 80s, man.
No doubt. Well, you got to understand that 89 was a crucial time. You know, 89 was when gangs like super started expanding to other states. You know, I was 16 in 89, man, and the homies was pushing it. Every state, you know, not every state, but they was pushing state to state, you know. So a lot of that shit that was going on up in these states, you know, the Tacomas, the Spokanes, the Seattles, and things of that nature, along with a whole lot of other states, these weren't like, you know, some of these weren't homegrown Crips from those eras. Some of them was homies from LA, you know what I mean, Compton, Watts, that just was up there, you know, and gave that town a little name. But these was really active Los Angeles gang members, you know, going to put a stronghold down on the drug trade. You know, that's how, you know, that was a super year that drug trade not started, but was like at the top of expanding to other states, you know, and everybody was going everywhere they could to get some money because they figured out, you know, you can get more out of town. So this shootout right here, man, these probably was really some LA dudes that just went up there and, you know, started another hood. But they got it cracking with the Army Rangers, man. That's crazy. I don't know how I never heard of this.
Yeah, I don't even know how it came up as a flashback story today, this week. But what I find interesting is that a lot of dudes from LA, you know, could take an ounce. I always found this amazing. An ounce in LA with maybe $400, $500 of cocaine $400 or $500 crack cocaine, but you take it to another city and you can get 1,000 or 1,200 or 1,500 or
Yeah, no
1,800.
doubt.
I've always found that the way that the market is for crack cocaine in some of these other cities was amazing, because all the youngsters that was running the show, they were really kind of like entrepreneurs to a certain degree, realizing the market in, let's say, Spokane or Tacoma could double your money. So it benefited you to not only go there to double your money, but also law enforcement wasn't as smart as they were in LA. So there was all kind of benefits for going to a town like Tacoma, right? Am I right on that?
Um, oh, you're 100% right on it, but you got to understand, Alice, these dudes weren't just, they knew how to market, they knew how to advertise, they knew how to distribute, you know what I mean? And these dudes were really businessmen, don't get me wrong, they were drug dealers, but most drug dealers, a lot of drug dealers are, good businessmen, they know how to, smooth things over with rivals, you know what I mean? So we can all get money. They can make it make sense. You guys want to bang or y'all want to get money,
Yeah.
So for a minute, you know what I mean? I've seen, a ceasefires based on let's get some bread, you know what I mean? And it has worked. Yeah, law enforcement was a lot slower, things of that nature. But yeah, you definitely could go out of town in any town, and then spread it across the United States. And unfortunately, like I say, with all the drug dealers leaving Los Angeles, LA, and all that, Compton, Watts, Linwood, and going to other states getting money, I when I go back and look at it, man, I still say that we messed up a generation, doing that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've heard Freeway Rick Ross talk about it, because he was one of the ones in the front of going to other cities and going to other towns, and he speaks about it
Hmm.
now as a regret, all the hurt and the damage. But when you're like in your teens and early 20s, and none of this that stuff is important, and you're just trying to get money, you know.
Yeah, but you know doubt, but you got to understand that we didn't have the intelligence that we had today. We didn't have the numbers. We didn't have the statistics, Alex. Who knew what crack was doing to people? You know what I mean? Just like
That wouldn't have
if
stopped.
fentanyl wasn't killing people right now. Uh-huh.
I say that wouldn't have stopped anybody though. If you're 21 years old, I mean, like you about to say fentanyl. Everyone knows fentanyl will kill you in an instant. But damn, every week we got.
What I'm saying until it did, but before it did, or say the oxycodone. They have been selling that shit for years. You know what I mean? Until people start ODing on it, that's when they start paying attention to it. And they still didn't put no harsh criminal laws on it like they did crack. But my point is, you didn't see the 30-year effect after crack. You didn't see, what it did to families and shit like that. You know what I mean? It's a whole lot of dudes I know who were drug dealers, that like you say, regret that they did it like that, but we just didn't have the intel that was going to be the outcome. You know what I mean? I don't believe it would have stopped everybody, of course. No, it wouldn't have. But I'm saying that we didn't know the toll it was going to take on our own people as well.
Yeah, that's for sure. The laws against crack cocaine are probably more unique than any other drug, and we all know that affected black folks. It wasn't affecting other races like it affected black folks. But we starting to see some attention given to the fentanyl. We starting to see a couple of white dudes, catching 10, 15, 20-year sentence off the fentanyl. But man, every week in the news there's another fentanyl bust, and it don't seem like anybody cares. The drug dealers, at least, about the dangers of fentanyl. They still serving it, and people are still buying it. How's that going to
Well,
end?
no, shit, it's hard to put an end to it. Drugs fuel the economy in America. They know how this shit go. You know what I mean? And to be honest with you, if crack would have stayed in the black community, they wouldn't have gave a shit about it either. It wasn't until you start going into the Tacomas and Little Rocks and all these other countries and white folks start getting hooked on it. You know what I mean? That's when Joe Biden and them came with the laws to bust us upside our head. It wasn't because we was doing it to our own people. Had we only been doing it to our own people, Alex, it never would have been an issue. Once those white folks started smoking crack, Joe Biden them put them laws in. A lot of people forgot what he did. He was the one who basically they manufactured the fucking crack laws in itself, made it 100 to 1, to powder, and so at the end of the day, Alex, fentanyl is a problem that you can't blame the blacks for this. So they trying to navigate and help it out. But from what I'm hearing, man, fentanyl killing thousands of people, and right now they don't have no way to put a stop to it. They're gonna try everything they can, but hey, it's a battle that on their hands.
And when you were serving your sentence for that crack cocaine, did you have these conversations with other people in prison about how unfair the laws are, and how to maybe we can fight our cases or fight our sentences? Or are these conversations that you guys even have in prison, or is prison you just got to focus on survival?
No, no, no. Let's be clear, man. You ain't surviving every day in prison. You know what I mean? It's that's a misconception that every day is a battle. My whole thing is every day you got to be ready. You know what I mean? But man, you know how many times we shut up and drank alcohol, man. I drunk alcohol with all my crib partners, and we do more motherfucker laughing in prison than we did on the street. You know what I mean? So don't get me wrong. It's not always just uptight, warfare every day. Now, don't let me paint that picture of anybody, think I did, but oh no, of course, and then a guy like me who delivered powder cocaine, I thought this was just the wrongest law in the world that I brought powder. I left powder cocaine and I still get a crack conspiracy for a few words that I said, or because I listened to somebody say something and agreed with them and things of that nature. No, that shit is damn wrong, man. Conspiracy shouldn't be even, in drug crimes. You know what I mean? Unless you out there selling 100 kilos or something like that, the conspiracy shouldn't even be a part of it. So yeah, we talked about the laws, we talked about the disadvantages, but we didn't learn a lot of this shit until we was already locked up, and we really started hitting the law library, studying these laws. And the thing I did was get a copy of these laws and send them home. You know what I mean? Because that's the best thing I can do. Because if you dudes don't believe me, because when I got caught, Alex, man, I bullshit you not. There wasn't nobody that believed I got caught with the small amount that I got caught with. Everybody, man, you got caught with 3-4 birds, man. Stop playing. And
Yeah.
and they just didn't believe that I got that kind of time for 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 um for the crime. But at the same time, man, yeah, we talk about all the laws. We even have our families do petitions to write in to um get some shit changed. I mean, we were real active on the changing some of these laws, as far as signing petitions and writing letters and having our families writing letters and things of that nature.
Yeah, I think the homeboy from Campanella Park, Kenzo, he did the same sentence you got, but his was involved
Hmm.
in a BMF multiple kilo drug transaction, and he got kind of the same time that you got. I think he got like 10 or 12, if I remember
No,
correctly.
no doubt. And I know dudes that got caught with 4 or 5 bricks, man. You know what I mean? When I say bricks or I say birds, I mean kilos for anybody who don't understand the lingo. No dudes that got, because it was crack hit 100 times harder. You know what I mean? So you can get caught with 7 birds with no record and get 10 years. You know what I mean? To get caught with a kilo, you never hear dudes in prison for getting caught with 1 kilo of powder. They not even there. You know what I mean? They bailing out. They getting 2-3 years. They, you know what I mean? They not even getting no time if they don't have no extensive record. You know what I mean? So like I say, when Biden them ramped it up, it really was against black people. It was and they admitted that 30 years later, after they incarcerated 100,000 blacks. So but luckily, like you say, some of the laws are changing, and they saying they use, by making that mistake with crack, they not putting all these harsh penalties on these other drugs because they saying that didn't work. It worked for them. You know what I mean? It didn't work for us.
How effective is the law library in prison? Does it really help you out and figure things out?
It's very effective, Alex. I mean, you can go in there with some in a bunch of computers, man, and every book. And I mean, it's, to be honest with you, a lot of dudes are still sitting in prison because they failed to go in there and do their homework. I seen a lot of dudes go in there and live in the law library and actually come home off a case they found or loophole they found in the law themselves. You know what I mean? And because your attorney, once you gone, he not effectively trying to get your appeal going. He got other shit to do. He got more money coming in. He got other cases that he's going to court fighting. So you got to go in there and fight yourself. And I've seen so many dudes don't want to go in the law library and do their homework, find a law similar to theirs where somebody got some relief, and use that in their appeal to get some time off, you know. And I seen some dudes come home off just living in that law library. They worked hard, they worked extensively, and they found something that got them some time off.
Now I know some homies that might be too embarrassed to admit that they don't know how to read. So that's got to be the number one skill you got to have is to know how to read. And you'd be surprised how many people don't know how to read, and we didn't know they didn't know how to read. Did you ever come across that problem?
Man, I came across that problem, man, back in '91 in the county jail, man. And the homie, we in the single man cells and shit. And the homie he was in the very next cell next to me, man. He like, yeah, man, baby, you gonna write this letter to me, man? I'm trying to see if she trying to break up with me or what. He was like, homie, check this out. So he handed it to me in the next cell. I'm reading it, and he like, what you think? I'm like, she ain't really. He said, can you read it? Can you read it out loud? You know, and I'm read it out loud. You know what I mean? Like, fuck you, I'm just trying to understand, homie, and
Yeah.
it clicked in me. It clicked in me. The homie can't read and shit. You know what I mean? And then that's when I didn't, hey man, I didn't judge him at the moment, but at the same time, then when I got to federal prison, where you around people every day, you in classes with them, say if you taking an anger management class with them or a victim impact class with them, and you realize that they don't have the capacity to comprehend or read at a certain level, you say, wow, I just didn't know. I thought everybody could comprehend and, read and understand, and they can't, Alex. So yeah, I did run into those situations a few times.
So maybe that's why some of those dudes don't even be sitting in that library. They're like, man, I don't even know how to read anyways. I'm just wasting my time up in there. So that's got to be disappointing for those who don't have that skill. And it's sad to call that a skill, but it is a skill. Reading is a skill, and not all of us learned it when we was young and going to school.
Well, you got your jailhouse lawyers, man, that these dudes kind of know what they were talking about. You know what I mean? Um, these dudes be in prison. They live in the law library. Like, they got an office in the law library that's their table, that's their desk. The police know, and you pay them to look at your case and figure shit out. So you got ways, bro. You know what I mean? You come up with a little couple dollars, some bread. These dudes will go through your case, run through your case, and look, man, I know this other law, or I know the homie who got out on this. They will file an appeal for you. They will file motions for you from prison. You know what I mean? So you have these dudes like that. You know what I mean? I know the homie Law Dog, and I think Law Dog was from Great. Ran into him. If you dudes that had any kind of issues that they wanted to check out on their case, you know what I mean? You can go holler at Law Dog, pay him. He'll run down through there for you and do all the homework. And that's the thing about it. I've had a couple dudes that go take certain dudes their case, and find out you motherfuckers wasn't right. You know what I mean? And the homie wasn't going hold that in. He was going to set you out there, so have your shit together, man. And, but Alex, it ain't no excuse, bro. Just to be honest with you, it ain't no excuse. Even if you can't read, right? It's people who will help you. You got homies from your set that would love to go in there, man, show you how to navigate or do it for you, because dudes in prison trying to buy their time and and do so some of them won't mind helping, so it ain't really no excuse, man. And you just sitting in there not even trying to get yourself out, if you got action. I've seen that a lot of times.
Okay, man, I wanted to talk about this Suge Knight story before we wrap it up. But before we talk about that, I just wanted to know if this one story. We got to talk about this one story maybe real quickly about the chick that killed her husband while live streaming on Facebook after they was having an argument. I'm not going to play the audio or the video to that. I'll put a link to that video in the show notes, but it's a crazy story. And they just charged her. Khadijah Michelle Brown, 28 years old, has been charged with murder of her boyfriend, or her husband actually, Jeremy Rock Brown, in Mississippi, Lowndes County, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
This just happened a few days ago, and it just happened. The video basically is she's recording him after he came home late or something. She's she's just upset. She's just going off on him like we've all been through this before. But she's recording him while she's doing this. I think you could hear like her mother in the background, and they get to getting a little bit physical, and then you hear a gunshot. You don't see it, you hear a gunshot. He ends up dead. They just charged her with murder. Crazy story, man. Did you get to check it out?
Yeah, I did get to check it out, man. You know, they did charge her with murder. I believe she got some action. You know, she got some action based on the police have been called to this house location before for domestic violence. She could be used as her defense that she was recording just to see if he get angry and whoop her ass. She had it on. She had the evidence. You know, if she had a gun for her protection, you know, like you say, the phone did fall. It was a little physical scuffle, and then the gun went off. He could have slapped the shit out of her or did something, and you know, out of fearing for her life, shot him. Um, um, so I believe she could have been using a Facebook Live as a protection, like, you know what I mean? Other people are going to see how this go down. Fortunately, like I say, you know, it's almost a situation like that we've seen plenty times before, man, where domestic disputes turn deadly. I don't think she just took the gun out and just, I'm finna blast you. You know, I think it was a scuffle. And to me, to be honest with you, Alex, the way it read that said that when the gun went off or when the guy was shot, Jeremy his name, and when Jeremy was shot, she started screaming, her friends started screaming, and they screamed for about a minute, and you know, and grabbed the baby crying. I kind of really think she shot him on accident, or shot him in the midst of trying to save her life. He probably tried to take the gun or something. That's how I'm looking at it. I'm sure if she get the right defense attorney, they gon' it's some loopholes. I ain't gonna say loopholes, but there's something in here that make him land or a manslaughter, man. Only thing they gonna be on their own is why did you have the gun in the first place?
Well, the way I see it is that she was instigating from the very beginning, and the instigating is what led to the physicality of the interaction, which led to the gunshot. So I think she's going to she might get a little action. I don't think it's first degree murder, but if she instigated this from the beginning, if she's telling her mama, wait till this dude come home, wait till he come home, I'm about to go off on his ass, I'm about to do this, I'm about to do that, I'm about to have this, I got my gun tucked right here in my waistband. They got them a first degree murder because it seems like this is what she had planned all along. And then what I didn't mention, he's trying to leave at this point in the video. He's like, all right, I'm about to get out of here. You know how we've all been through this before. I'm about to get out of here. I'm gonna let you cool off. I'll come back later. But she didn't let him leave. From what it seems like, we can't see that because the camera falls down. But I think that she's going to be held responsible, and I think she could possibly get that first degree if this is something that she had in her mind before he got there.
Well, that'd be hard for people to, you know, differentiate what was in her mind, you know, because clearly, I don't believe she had no intentions of shooting him. I believe she was scared for her situation and had the gun. And like you say, even though somebody is if you at the mall, Alex, or you at a restaurant and somebody run up on you, oh, Alex Alonso, man, fuck you, man, you woo woo, blam blam blam. That gives you no right to punch him in the face, though. You know what I mean? You still gonna be held responsible if you punch him in the face. So whether she was egging him on or disrespecting him or saying everything she was saying, how was he not able to leave? I don't see a woman, unless you shoot me in the back of the head or in the back, I don't see you not letting me leave. You know what I mean? You know, I'm out of there, you know, and but I could be totally wrong. You know, she just could have got so mad. She could have got in front of him while he trying to leave. He pushed her out the way. She blasted. You know, it could have went like that. I'm just saying, from what I'm reading here, I'm sure that they forensics have a whole lot more intel than we do, Alex. But you know, I don't see a first degree. I don't see a first degree.
Well, we definitely got.
I don't think she planned it. I don't think it was premeditated. I don't think she planned it. I think she knew his get down as far as he'll slap the dog shit out of her. Look at him. He looked like he'll slap the dog shit out of a female. But I don't want to. But I don't want to, you know, stereotype the dude. I done already prejudged him. But you know, hey man, that's what it be sometimes. But he looked like he would kicked her ass a few times. But I just don't think they'll get the first degree. I believe they might get she might get off with a manslaughter, man.
Well, I'm going to ask you to prejudge him again based on the photo because there's an allegation that I don't know if it was in that article, but there's an allegation that he's actually bisexual or gay, and that might also have contributed to their conflict. And when I look at this picture, I'm saying to myself, you know what? There's a possibility that that's true.
No, no doubt. In today's society, you shit, it's a possibility all the way around. But that probably where it got physical at. You know what I mean? Female talking shit to you, and then she be like, "No, you rather fuck your homeboy than to fuck me." Some shit like that to trigger a dude who guilty. You know what I mean? And a regular dude like that shit wouldn't even. We'll laugh at it. But for a dude who's guilty of it, man, took the circumstances different, and that's probably when he turned around and got on her. The phone dropped, and she tried to do her shit, and she did it. So we're going to stay on top of this and see how this pan out, because like I said, I think she gonna get I think she can, if with the right defense, she can get that murder one knocked down.
All right, we'll stay on top of that story. I think that the murder one is going to stick, because I think this is part of her play. But we'll see when all the evidence comes out. And lastly, man, let's tap in with this Suge Knight story, man. Apparently, Suge Knight is shopping around. According to TMZ, he's shopping around his story so that it can be told on television in the same way that the BMF story is being told, and some of these other biopics are being
like
told.
A mini-series type thing.
Yeah, at first went from I remember he was trying to do his movie similar to the Straight Outta Compton movie, just a one-off. But now it's I think there's more money in the episodic shows, and that's what he's trying to pitch right now, man. What do you think of a Suge Knight miniseries?
Oh no, I'd watch it, because I've seen so many and heard so many of what other people did and what other people thought, just to get it from him firsthand, and how he felt about it or how he saw it. I think the world would definitely tune in. I had heard somewhere, on one of these social media things before, that he couldn't do a movie based on he had signed his life rights over to someone. I don't know if that's true, or if that's affect the main movie, or if the mini series is a different avenue for him to get it done. Like I said, I don't know. I just be hearing stuff, these social medias. But I'm not opposed to him setting it straight on from his perspective. You know what I mean? I definitely watch it and check it out, because it would be coming from the horse's mouth on how he felt and saw everything.
Yeah, definitely. I think it would be definitely a hit. A lot of these miniseries have been very successful. They've been able to get some decent budgets to produce them, and I see it very possible, like a 10 episode, an 8 episode miniseries on the whole death row empire. I'm sure it's going to start off with Suge Knight's childhood, but he still has this one lingering problem though. For him to make any money and for this thing to be profitable for him, he still has that civil lawsuit hanging over his head that's going to go in April, because it was a hung jury last year. They're going to redo it. I think it's going to go later this year. I heard April. But if he loses this civil lawsuit, then that's going to just take away from any possible profits that he can make off of a miniseries. And I wonder if other companies would be willing to work with him, knowing that he's going to be owing millions and millions of dollars to the Terry Carter family if he loses that lawsuit.
No doubt, but at the same time, man, I believe these people know how to get around it, in one way or another. He could basically tell the story for free. They can't charge him for telling the story. So if somebody else took the story and ran with it, just based on he was just having a conversation with them and was telling them the story, and they took the information and went and did something with it, and he never filed a lawsuit against them saying they put out bogus information, I still think it's a way for them to get away with it. Your boy, I heard your boy Reggie Wright Jr. speaking on he may be getting some time knocked off. You got any knowledge into that?
Well, yeah, let's speak a little bit about that, because Reggie Wright had a dude on his podcast the other day that claimed that Suge Knight is about to get 10 to 15 years knocked off his sentence. And I looked up his current sentence, and it looks like he is not eligible for release until 2034 is his earliest eligibility date. And if he doesn't get, and if he max out, it's 2038. That hasn't changed. So I don't believe that. And plus, he took a deal What a lot of people don't realize, when you take a deal, it's almost slim to unlikely impossible to get any time knocked off your sentence. So, I don't know why Reggie Wright is having that guy on his show. I think that guy is spewing misinformation. He is not scheduled for release until 2034. That's 11 years from now. So look, if this guy got 10 or 15 years knocked off his sentence, which started in 2015, he'd be walking out of prison right now.
Well, I mean, it was mentioned that he was finna come home, and like I say, it's just rumors, or I just heard it. I can't authenticate it. I'm just saying that's what I, heard your boy talking about. But maybe they know something we don't know, Alex, and it could be possible. So, I guess we got to sit around and see if somebody could pull a rabbit out of a hat.
Well, name me somebody that took a deal and took a deal for multiple offenses. This wasn't just for killing Terry Carter. He took a package deal for these two other offenses. He had the Cat Williams case, and he also had the assault that he committed against F. Gary Gray. It was an email assault. What do they call that? Terrorist threat. He had a terrorist threat against F. Gary Gray. He had the assault with the photographer with Cat Williams, and then of course they're calling that a murder of Terry Carter. So he's got multiple cases. He took the 28-year deal. Who gets out of a deal that they take for multiple cases?
Only time I've seen that happen is when the law change. You know what I mean? And I'm not familiar with any laws changing. Of course, I'm not an attorney by far, but have seen dudes that took plea agreements that, a law change and they were eligible, to put their motion in based on that the law changed, so like I say, I'm not familiar with his case, at all. Only thing I know is he did get to 28. I don't know much more, so I'm just saying it was put out there, it was put out there on the platform where we know we couldn't miss. So just wanted to see if you had any inside knowledge on that, just to
Well, if he can get 10 years knocked off his sentence, that means if he got 10 years knocked off his sentence right now, he'd be eligible to come home in 1 year. So,
right.
So if that's true, we should be seeing Suge Knight on the streets real soon. If it's true, as of right now, the CDC does not reflect that his release date is 2034 still, and we'll see. But I do look forward to them creating this biopic if he had a way of beating that civil case. I'm sure the plan is to beat the civil case and then do the film, and I'm sure that would be the best case scenario for Suge.
Well, no, I definitely like to hear his opinion on it, in a miniseries or movie version like that, from him. Like I say, so many have been made, so to see one from directly from him and his thoughts, like I say, I tune into that.
And how do you feel about a lot of this is going to be about the Pyrus? Once it gets to the death row part, it's going to be an East Side Pyru story to a certain extent.
I don't know, you know what I mean? Because don't forget, there was a lot of Crips at the rows, a lot of Crips that mingle with Suge. There was a lot of people, period, so how far they get in depth into that, I just don't know, So, I mean, if you think of the roles, it was a very extensive movement, a lot of moving pieces, you did have the music, you did have the Snoops, you did have the Dre's, you did have the Pyrus, you know what I mean? But you had so many pieces. How he would put it together from his mind, that's the part that I say I'd like to see, just based on, from his perception. But it definitely started on that East Side, man, and so, like I said, we'll see from his perspective. He may leave a lot of that out just based on, don't want to, and you never know. That's why I say I will watch it just to see what's in it and what's not.
Yeah, definitely. I know that not everyone's going to be satisfied with whatever version of story that he puts out, because a lot of people, some people were pissed about the Straight Outta Compton film. It left a lot of things out that people thought were important. So, not everyone's going to be happy, but at least in an episodic way, you have more time to show more parts of the story. So with Straight Outta Compton, it's a 2-hour movie, and you got to tell the whole story.
Gotta squeeze in what you can. Yeah.
So he'll have at least 10 hours. If it's a 10 episode show, he'll have at least 10 hours to tell his story, man. Where can they tap in with you, FG?
Oh man, tap in with me at FG Unleashed. People still checking us. A lot of videos they missed that they coming in checking out over there on Instagram at F General One, man. But like I say, man, we right here on Streets and Scholars, rocking and rolling every Thursday, so they definitely could tap in over here.
Definitely. And you can find me at Alex Alonso 101, Instagram and Twitter. Please follow us on all the podcast platforms, Spotify, iHeart. And if you're listening to us on Apple, leave us a rating review. We'll read it on the air. And on that note, thanks for tapping in with another fire episode of Streets and Scholars.